Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And this is a bonus episode looking at audience comments, questions, and answers. I get so many insightful questions and intelligent comments on the content that I do that I thought that I would bring that to a wider audience and talk about some of the issues that are raised. We are going to look at Bailey and Jules Thomas a little bit later on. Also the Sergio Barraza case, which I know is very, very popular. But we're going to start with the content on Nicole Baldwin. Nicole Baldwin went missing at the beginning of November 2023. And we looked at what her daughter was saying about her disappearance. And also someone called Terry, who was an intrinsic part of the search party. And I've got a comment here from Donna, who says, if I was being interrogated about a crime, I would have said absolutely not, because that's how I speak. It's my baseline. Donna, thank you for your comment. You may well have said absolutely not, although I hope you haven't been interrogated about a crime, because you may say something different. And like I point out, every time I talk about the word absolutely, when someone says absolutely or absolutely not, it doesn't prove they're lying. It doesn't prove they're being deceptive. It's just often the word absolutely does appear in deception. So it's one of those red flag words where when you see someone say absolutely, you have a look at what's around it just to see, does that hang together? And is it true? Could it be deceptive? The exact same as absolutely not. Why not just say no? It's simpler. It takes less effort. You have to try. Someone who's saying absolutely not could be trying to be really emphatic about their denial. And why would someone do that? Possibly because they're being deceptive. Donna says, I also say just a lot. It's a habit in my speech pattern. Now, everyone says just a lot, and very often it is deceptive. Now, remember, not all deception is malicious. We're not always lying about missing people or murders or crimes. We can be being deceptive in a kind way because we want to tell a white lie to make someone feel good, or we lack confidence in ourselves. If you want to try something, just look at yourself over the next 24 hours, not just you, Donna, everyone, and look at when you say just. And when do you use that in deception? You know, I send emails saying, just checking you got my previous email as I haven't had a reply yet. I'm not just checking. I'm actually chasing for a reply to this email. And if I was being more honest, I'd say, I need a reply to this. I haven't had it. But I use just checking. If someone asks me if I've started that job that I promised I'd do, I was just about to start when really I was going to do it sometime later when I get round to it. We use just a lot in deception. It's not always malicious. It doesn't always prove someone is a murderer or has like guilty knowledge of a crime, but just does come up time and time again in deception. Donna continues, I've noticed that when someone goes missing, many people who don't know the missing person often volunteer to help search. She then says, I'm sure that if that's a crime, many times the criminal will want to stay close to the situation. Yes, agreed, as you stated. But that means possibly hundreds of volunteers are just helping because they feel for the family. Donna, I'll disagree with you there. Hundreds of volunteers are helping because they feel for the family, not just helping because they feel for the family. That's why I picked on Terry's use of just. I thought there was something more going on there. But like I say, I don't necessarily think that there's something malicious going on with Terry wanting to be involved in the search, like, you know, she's done something to Nicole and she wants to be close to the search to say close to the police. I don't think that is the case at all. Donna says, I know you're doing a good thing by helping people detect possible deception. Thank you for that. That's very kind. But different areas seem to have people who speak with speech patterns that aren't correct English. What I do is not about the use of correct English at all. It's about the words that we choose to use, the way maybe we don't answer questions directly, things that we repeat and so on. Not just about, it's not ever about the correct use of English. This is not an English exam. This is not an English test. Donna says, I think it's important to see if you can get a person's baseline before you come to a conclusion about their intentions. That is behavior language, behavior panel and behavior analysis stuff, body language stuff. When you look at a baseline, Donna, in statement analysis, it's not so much about a baseline. It's about seeing as many of the words and statements that people make as possible. We're looking for repeated indicators, all pointing towards one thing or another thing. That's what we're looking for. So baseline is not so important in this. It's not, in fact, it's really not important at all. It's about how someone uses words and the tactics that they use. Thank you very much for your comment. Another comment on the Nicole Baldwin case, and this was something that was in at the end of it, and it's from Gray, who says, wow, decapitated the family is pretty much the oddest and most concerning thing she could have said in that moment. And this was Nicole's daughter saying that the police had taken her phone and her father's phone, and the comment Nicole made was like they had decapitated the family. Gray, I agree. It is an odd thing to say, especially in the circumstances. And yes, it's concerning. It's just one phrase, so it's not enough to say this is exactly what's happened to Nicole and these are the guilty people, but it's really, really concerning. A comment from Gemma now on the Russell Brand denial of the allegations and the breakdown of his denial. And Gemma says, I'm unsure what I think of Russell Brand's comments. As with many things, the truth is often found somewhere in the middle. Agree with you right there, Gemma. I like that he discusses controversial topics and appears to be in support of equality for all, but then there are things he's done that were questionable and at times completely immoral. It's understandable he wants to protect himself and keep his fans on his side. I think absolutely understandable. We all want to protect ourselves, and if we're making money from our fans, absolutely, we would want to keep them on side. But the statement Russell Brand gave does come across to me as extremely manipulative and makes me uncomfortable. And yeah, I agree with you, Gemma. This was a very manipulative statement telling us what we should think, telling us how we should think. And Gemma, you say there it makes you uncomfortable. And I think in so many times we spot things in people's words without really knowing what we're spotting. If we know what to look for, we can see them. But when we hear someone being manipulative, like Russell Brand was there, we might not go, oh, this is manipulative language. We might just not like what we hear, and it might make us feel uncomfortable. I think our sense or our feeling when we read words or see words quite often indicates what the truth is. Sometimes we just don't have the skills to work out exactly why it sits badly with us, exactly why it puts us on edge. Hopefully, if you watch more of these videos or listen to more of these podcasts, then you get some skills to know when someone is being manipulative in their language, and you'll know why it makes you feel uncomfortable. Gemma finishes by saying maybe he's trying too hard that it sounds disingenuous. And I think that's exactly it with Russell Brand. He couldn't just say, no, I didn't do these things that I'm accused of. Did not happen at all. He tried too hard and went into too long explanations and used too many words to make the denial, so it sounded disingenuous. He was trying too hard. Gemma again commented on the Becky Hill talking about the Alex Murdaugh jury and how much did she talk to them and how much, if any, influence did Becky Hill have on the Alex Murdaugh jury. And Gemma's comment there is, there was hardly any conversation and no talking at all, which is something Becky said in a TV interview. That just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. Let's look at what Becky said. She said in a TV interview she was talking about being with the jury at the Moselle visit outside the courthouse to see where the murders happened. And Becky said, when we were out there on the property and walking side by side, there was hardly any conversation. No talking at all. And I said, when I looked at it, well, that's a contradiction. Hardly any conversation means there was some conversation, not a lot of conversation, but there was some conversation. That's what hardly any conversation means. And then she says, no talking at all, which is no talking at all. There's zero quiet silence, which is not the same as hardly any conversation. And what I said there in my analysis was that what I think Becky has done there is the truth has come out. She's not been thinking. Her words have just come kind of on autopilot. There was hardly any conversation. And then she's thought, oh, crap. The judge has said there is to be no talking. There's an order that the jury and me are not to talk at all. So I better, in her words, correct that and say no talking at all, because I don't want anyone to think that actually we had conversation there, which is why it's come out as hardly any conversation, no talking at all. And in fact, since that, Becky has testified at a hearing in court, so under oath to tell the truth, and she said there was conversation. She did have conversation with a juror on that trip. Albeit, as Becky says, it was an innocuous conversation. I think about how nice the gardens were, or how nice the smell was, or something like that. But there was conversation. And as I often say, the truth, when people talk, when they're being deceptive, the truth will leak out if you know what to look for. More comments coming in on the Sergio Barraza case. Sergio's wife Elizabeth was shot on her driveway, I think 2020 now, and these videos are quite old, but they're still getting a lot of views and a lot of comments, which suggests to me a huge interest in the case. And there is another bit of content, another episode ready to go on Sergio Barraza, looking at the day and what he said the day his wife was shot. I think you'll find that one very interesting when it's released. Back to the comments, and Bella says, I found it interesting that Sergio stated exactly where they had put the garage sale signs, because from the start I thought the shooting was either set up by Sergio or it was done by someone in the neighbourhood in anger over something really trivial. I kept wondering whether they'd put where they'd put the signs in case they'd put one somewhere that bothered someone enough for them to go and retaliate. Bella, this is a great spot, so let's look at what was said there. The interviewer says to Sergio, tell us about the garage sale. There's been a lot of focus on that. Who knew about the garage sale? Sergio's reply is, the only people that I know knew about the garage sale was some of her co-workers. Myself, her parents, and I think my mom. Those were the only people that knew about it, you know. And then whatever we placed the signs the night before, we placed 2 signs at the entrance of our neighbourhood and one just down the road at Hubsmith in Kirkendall. And those were the only signs we put up. And like I said, those were the only people that knew about it. What I noticed there was that he spends as much time talking about everyone, the co-workers, myself, parents that knew about the garage sale. He spends as much time talking about all of them as he does about the specific detail of where these signs were placed the night before. And that is very interesting. He's spending a lot of time there. And if you notice, the question is, who knew about the garage sale? And he starts off with some who's, co-workers, myself, her parents, my mom. And then he talks about where the signs were. So this isn't who. He may be hoping that we get the inference that anyone who saw these signs would also have known about the garage sale, but he doesn't say that. Instead, he talks about very specifically where these signs are, and that's interesting. Bella, I think it was who put in the comment. You're on to something there. Also about the triviality of it. There's something that comes through in Sergio's words a lot of the time that does seem to suggest he thinks this is a small thing that's caused the shooting of his wife. Another comment on the Elizabeth Barraza and Sergio case comes from TJ Rice, who says, it does seem odd when he says her going to meet with some random people. I've seen people be deceptive with a very similar statement followed by, or the same with me, like they're trying to take away any meaning behind that first statement. They said something they shouldn't have, and then they're backpedaling by saying, or the same with me. He also keeps saying bickering and trying to paint a perfect picture of them too. Right, so let's deal with the last points last. Sergio does say bickering and trying to paint a perfect picture of them too. And I think in everything I've seen, that his primary concern seems to be painting a perfect picture of what a perfect person Elizabeth was and what a perfect relationship they had. And I wonder why it's important for him to get those things across. My suspicion is that she wasn't quite as perfect as Sergio would like us all to believe. Again, there's maybe not he's guilty in any way by saying that. You know, we all don't like to talk ill of the dead, and you know, there's nothing to be gained by putting someone down who's deceased. In fact, often putting someone down who's deceased can be a bit of a giveaway about guilt. So there's nothing that's suspicious in that, other than I'm not entirely sure they were the perfect couple, and she was such a perfect person that Sergio likes to say. On your other point, well, let's look at what happened there and what was said. There's a question put to Sergio. Your mother-in-law told us that maybe someone was jealous of your life. Do you think that could have been a motive? And Sergio says, it's possible someone could have been jealous. They never made themselves known if that is the case. We both lived happy and quiet lives together. Just kind of did our nerdy thing and just kind of went from there. You know, we never had like arguments or had, I don't feel arguments with other people. there were small like bickering with like club stuff, but never like, I don't feel like I would say jealousy or anything like that, or her going to meet some random people. Or the same with me. It was just we lived to be with one another, That was our lives, and we were happy to do that. So first thing I'd say there is Sergio does answer the question, do you think jealousy could have been a motive? And he talks about jealousy all the way through. But yeah, or her going to meet some random people. Why did he drop that in? He would potentially be jealous about her going to meet some random people. Potentially. Is there some jealousy there? And then you're right. Or the same with me. Trying to go, I'm not, I'm looking at this from every single point of view. I'm not just, please don't think I'm focusing in on Elizabeth here. I'm focusing in on the whole thing here. It could be me as well. Some interesting things come up in the words there. Her just going to meet some random people. What do you think about that one? There's comments here. If you want to comment on this or send me a message on social media, you'll find all the links in the show description. What do you why do you think he's mentioned her going to meet some random people when he was speaking? And like I say, there's a video coming soon and a podcast coming soon on Sergio Barraza and what he said the day Elizabeth was shot. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let's talk about Ian Bailey and Jules Thomas. First of all, a comment from Kerry. You say that the Kerry baby scandal has no relevance to Gardaí behaviour in the Toscan de Plantier case, yet isn't past behaviour an excellent indicator of future behaviour? And don't people cite Bailey's past violent behaviour as an indicator that he could have been the murderer? How can you stand by both these statements? So let's break that down. You say that the Kerry baby scandal has no relevance to the Gardaí behaviour in the Toscan de Plantier case. I do, because just because the Gardaí were corrupt and abysmal in one arm does not mean and not prove that they must be corrupt or acting really badly in this case. Isn't past behaviour an excellent indicator of future behaviour? Yes, it is, but more on the personal sense. If you want to look at what someone is likely to do in the future, look at what they've done in the past, and that will give you the most likely thing that will happen in the future, but not a guarantee of what will happen in the future. With organisations, with companies like the Gardaí, it's less indicative of future behaviour because it's less hinging on the actions of one person. But there still is an element of that. Don't people cite Bailey's past behaviour as an indicator that he could have been the murderer? Past violent behaviour, he could have been the murderer. Yes, they do. How can you stand by both these statements? Well, Kerry, you've put those words into my mouth. How can you stand by both these statements? You've made the statements, Kerry, not me, so I don't have to stand by both these statements. But I will say until I'm blue in the face, as far as the Ian Bailey situation is concerned, it's entirely possible that the Gardaí were corrupt, tried to frame and fit up Ian Bailey for the crime. It's entirely possible that is the case. It's also entirely possible that is the case. There was a corrupt investigation and that Ian Bailey murdered Sophie Toscan de Plantier. The two things are not mutually exclusive. Kerry, thank you for your comment. Julia asks, would you consider analysing Ian Bailey's poem on the farmer, the field and the crows? And I must admit, Julia, the first time I read that, I thought, no, I cannot bring myself to look at Ian Bailey's poetry. No. And then she said, I believe he has each of them speak in the first person singular. I would be curious what he would have the crows, classic predators, say, and is there any leakage there? So I have undertaken with Julia that I will, if I can find the time and the inclination, to analyse Ian Bailey's poem on the farmer, the field and the crows and see what comes up. Another comment on Ian Bailey and Jules Thomas. Akemi says, I don't think that's Jules, participated in the crime, but she may have noticed unusual behaviours that would be clues to his guilt, and she may have admitted that to investigators, and hiding that kind of knowledge could be considered a crime too, ? I think she is protecting her social image. Well, Akemi, one of the things about analysing people's words is that not only do you work on truth and deception, especially if you look at the things people talk about regularly or the words that people use regularly, you can learn a lot about their personalities. And I have looked at a lot of Jules Thomas words, and definitely she is concerned with what people think about her. She cares a lot about judgments that people make on her. Nothing to say there that she is guilty of anything or that she's hiding anything, only saying that, in common with a lot of people, her social image, her social standing, and what other people say and think and feel about her is very important to Jules. So I can make you are on to something there. We've got someone here with the great name of Jerkface Killer, who says, at least when Jules says, I know or I knew Ian didn't do it, it makes sense, unlike when people say it about themselves. He says, people from all different cultures insist on telling us what they know they did or didn't do, and it drives me up the wall. I agree, and it's such a big question mark for me when someone says, I know I didn't do it, or I know I did do this. Why don't you just say, I didn't do this and I did do that? Why do you have to put the no in there? You know? Are you convincing yourself? Or are you convincing us? But when someone says they know what someone did rather than just someone did it, yeah, I find that very interesting as well. Thank you for your comment. And finally, this is a prompt for you. I've been asking for other cases to look at, other statements to analyse. Sam says the Ramseys. I presume that's John Benet Ramsey. Definitely on the list, Sam. If there's anything else you'd like to look at, old or new, if you spot something, or if there's something that's always intrigued you, or a case that is just really interesting to you, then drop it in the comments if you can, or get in touch on social media. And I will gladly have a look and see if we can get some content out of those cases, because some of the best and most interesting cases I've looked at have come from audience suggestions. And that's it. Thank you for all the comments. We'll do this again when they pile up and deserve dealing with. You can check out neveratruerword.com. There you will find more podcasts, more videos. You can sign up for the newsletter, and probably most importantly, how to get in touch on the socials if there's anything at all that you'd like to discuss about what has been discussed here in this bonus episode, or if there's any cases that you would like to take a look at. And we'll see you again soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.